All right, so we're back here on the third episode of the Eurostep Pod, the AI edition of the Euro. Of course, it's your man. I got my man JB on the other. What's going on, Jamie?
Not much, man. It's getting cold out here, man. This weekend, man, was in the low 20s on Saturday, man. So looks like winter has come a little early here in South Korea. It's really cold here, man. Very cold. Like never experienced any kind of cold like this in Richmond.
Yeah, we starting to get there. We think we're like in the 30s this morning.
Okay.
It's getting there. It's just very weird that it's gotten really cold here early compared to previous years where it's been kind of a little bit in the 40s, 50s, whatever. It's been remarkably cold early, so hopefully it'll be a warm winter. So who's to say? But man, the NBA, man, of course. It's funny to think that going in this, we've already had 1 month of NBA action already. So what was your pretty much your first month thoughts of the NBA season so far?
Well, one of my first thoughts, and I guess we're gonna get into this later. Boston. Many people thought Boston was going to fall apart after the Gordon Hayward injury. I didn't think. I think me and you spoke about this. We still thought Boston had the ability to win high 40s. They're going to win more than high 40s this year. They're going to win into the 50s. I would say that Boston is probably going to win 50. I'd say 55 to 60 games this year, man. I really do. I like what I'm seeing from them. Some other things from the first month of the season that I've noticed, a lot of rookies are struggling. We kind of talked about that last month. And I think another thing that I'm noticing too, a lot of players are shooting good from three this year. And when I'm talking about good for three, you have like a guy like Tobias Harris shooting high 40s, and he's shooting close to 5 3-pointers a game. So have you noticed like how the players are jacking up a lot of threes, but their percentages are like kind of high? There are a lot of guys in their 40s, like mid 40s, high 40s. I know it's early on in the year, but guys that were really not good 3-point shooters are shooting the rock really well so far this year. So
yeah, I was looking at this too because a lot of guys are. It's weird because normally back previous time where you see guys like shooting in the 30s, and that was kind of pretty much normal. Like shooting like 35% from three was like okay. I mean, it ain't bad, but like you're saying, shooting at a clip like that is amazing. And I think what it is, like Golden State is doing, and then of course, 3-point shot is how it is. I guess a lot of getting up the shots just at a good clip.
Yeah,
kind of the NBA times at this point.
Yeah. But yeah, those have been like my thoughts so far thus far this year. We have kind of talked about some teams have been kind of disappointing. We can get into that a little bit later, but like I think the rookies struggling, players shooting a high 3-point percentage, and I think the Celtics are really the story of the first month of the season so far. What are your big takeaways from the first month of the season?
Yeah, that too. Of course, we'll talk about the Celtics a little bit later. I look at what the Thunder's doing, even at 7-8. Figured I didn't say they were gonna be like I didn't consider them. I figured at this point they would have double-digit wins, at least maybe if we look at the 15, maybe like a 10-5-ish, 11-4-ish type. And then Friday night against the Spurs, it was very very telling. And of course, in that Spurs team without Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah. So let's talk.
It was one of those type of.
Yeah, let's talk about that game real quick because there were a lot of crazy comebacks last week. So, did you actually sit down and watch the Spurs Thunder game? Did you watch all of it, or did you watch part of it?
I watched part of it because we got up the show on Friday night, so we went out and we caught it was because it was the first half, and they were comfortably up, and then to my surprise, when I woke up the next morning, I like Thunder lose that game. That was the same night of the Miami and Washington comeback.
Yeah.
kind of looking at both of those is like, because I think at that time, yeah, we watched the Thunder game up to halftime because I think that Miami and Washington game was just about ending. That's what I recall.
Yeah. So yeah, I watched a little bit of the Spurs game, and you could kind of tell early on. You could kind of tell early on that San Antonio kind of got off to like a lackadaisical start. So I wasn't really worried that I thought San Antonio was going to manage to get back in the game. I didn't think they were going to actually come all the way back. And one of the big things I've noticed when I've been watching the Thunder this year, man, their spacing's horrible. Like, have you noticed how bad the spacing is on the court?
Terrible.
Yeah, the spacing's terrible.
Too, and I'm thinking to myself, but it's almost one of those things where it's like, I think it's just one of those things where it's like looking back at it, whole acquisition and everything, we kind of expect that was going to happen. About those type, when you bring in a Paul Anthony, who in a sense, a space anyway. So, and it's more evident. Like something's going to happen, but then when you see it, and it's like more so of a manifestation, but more so of like, but I think it was be this bad.
Yeah. So Chris, man, I think part of the problem for the spacing, and this is one of the things, and me and my dad, we kind of disagreed about this. They're not a good three-point shooting team. They're not a good three-point shooting team. Like, you look at Carmelo's like career numbers. Carmelo's an average three-point shooter. Paul George is probably a little above average, and Russ is below average for three-point. So they're not a good three-point shooting team. And if you don't really have shooters, then the court is going to be kind of scrunched up. And then you also look at how those three guys operate. They like their ball dominant and they're ISO players. And if you're an ISO player, if you don't really have any lanes to drive, it's going to be tough for you. One of the things that has made LeBron so great during his first run around with Miami, they have always surrounded LeBron with really good shooters so he can have these clear driving lanes. Oklahoma City does not really have good three-point shooters on the team. I think the best shooter that they have on their team comes off the bench, the guy from Spain, Brenes. He's their best shooter, but like the spacing's horrible. The defense has been good, but like they just you see them sometimes when they get going, and then you're like, man, this team, there will be a force to be reckoned with. But you saw the first quarter of the Spurs game, and then you even saw the first quarter against the Kings in the Kings game a couple of weeks ago. They were on fire, and then after that, they kind of cooled down for the rest of the game. And I'm sorry, but I want Carmelo Anthony taking 20, 21-foot, 2-pointers. I think that if he's gonna make that shot, he makes it. But I want him taking those shots. I want Russ taking mid-range shots. I want Paul George taking these long twos. I just think that the way that they're playing is not good. I don't expect for them to, continue playing this bad. But, let's just be honest, Chris. Do you think that they're a top-tier team in the West? I don't think that they are. I don't think that as of right now, and, trades can be made. But as of right now, I can't see them beating the Spurs, the Rockets, or the Warriors in the 7-game series, and I think it's up in the air whether they could even beat a team like Minnesota in the 7-game series.
At this point, I mean, even though we think it's going to happen, but and even look at the first month of the season, they'll make it. But like you're saying, 8, because like you're saying, even if we're looking at a first round matchup with either Golden State, Houston, possibly. In that range. So good thus far in the first month of the season for them. But who's to say? They can make some acquisitions. They definitely need to do something as far as definitely to help their bench, because of course their depth is really is terrible.
It's horrible. Yeah, their depth is horrible. What the two biggest questions I had about them coming into this year, Chris, was the depth and their 3-point shooting. And I mean, honestly, I'll be honest with you, Raymond Felton has actually played decent for them, but the biggest disappointment on the bench has actually been Patrick Patterson. They signed him as a free agent from Toronto, and he's been a humongous disappointment this year.
but who's to say with that? And another surprise I also had too, which I like what the Detroit Pistons are doing.
Yeah,
This maybe I think a week or two ago. 11-5, they're doing their thing. Of course, they're top of the Central Division at this point. Of course, on November the 20th, but they're doing their thing. I like what Detroit is doing. Maybe the move to downtown Detroit. You who's to say going forward with that? But yeah.
yeah. Detroit's been a pleasant surprise. I had them actually when we did our first show that was not saved. I
Yeah,
we
yeah.
I had Detroit as a playoff team. I like Van Gundy. I think he's a solid coach. I think the big reason for their success so far this year has actually been Tobias Harris. He's just been shooting the heck out the basketball. He's been I don't know if he can continue shooting the three like he is, but if he can keep that in the high 30s, that's good. And then also Reggie Jackson has kind of resurrected his career because he had a really down year last year. And Avery Bradley has been good for them. Avery Bradley, the consummate professional. He's come there. He's done his thing. They have played pretty good defense this year. And Andre Drummond, let's give a shout out to him. He's making free throws this year.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, big time. Any other surprises for the first month?
I've been surprised a little bit, like not trying to take a dig at Russ again, but like Victor Oladipo and Sabonis have both been playing pretty solid basketball for Indiana, and it kind of solidifies my opinion about how both of those guys were not used right in Oklahoma City. Like if people were saying that both of them were garbage, they're both producing for Indiana, and Indiana has actually been kind of a pleasant surprise this year too. I don't think many people would have said that they were going to be, around 500 after probably about 17, 18 games, but they're hanging in there. So Indiana, Oladipo, Sabonis, and Miles Turner have all been playing good. Miles Turner, I picked him to be most improved player of the year. He had a big game from last night. They went into Miami and they destroyed Miami, beat them by 25 points last night. So
Yeah, that's another thing too. Especially Indiana, that they've been a pleasant surprise too. Because I think a lot of people were looking at them as like I don't want to say bottom feeders, but they were, it's very a great accomplishment. And then you look at Big Oladipo, and I think we both Oladipo was a solid NBA player. We knew that from the jump, even so in Orlando days. So, and yeah, like you said, telling OKC because I'm not trying to say they're like the same, but he wasn't utilized in the way that he should at that point. And then that happens. That's what it's like everything in life. Everybody, certain situations bring the best out of you, and some don't. And sometimes you're put in a position where you can be. Definitely being in Indiana, you would definitely see that. So
yeah, most
of course, we both have always said the very compliment of Big Oladipo. So
yeah,
thing also Sabonis is doing his thing for Indiana as well.
yeah. So yeah,
Guys, I'm who I'm liking, even though in the sense, I like your boy Jason. He's playing some ball, man. He definitely coming in the spot, especially after the Gordon Hayward injury. He's been doing this thing, man. It's like from the kid from Durham.
yeah. Yeah, the kid from Durham. Yeah. So let's go into So since we got into Jason Tatum, let's get into Boston, man. Boston, I think, has been the biggest team surprise. You look at what happened to them opening night. Uh, Gordon Hayward suffers that catastrophic injury, and they gather themselves after going down 19 points, and they take the lead in the fourth quarter against Cleveland. Cleveland comes back and wins because LeBron James was phenomenal down the stretch, but I don't. And then they come back the next night and they lose to Milwaukee. If you would have bet money on Boston winning 15 in a row after that in Vegas, you'd probably be a millionaire today. But I mean, I
Yeah.
think Boston has just been amazing story. We didn't mention them as a surprise, but I think that Jaylen Brown has, he showed a lot during the playoffs last year. Once Isaiah Thomas got hurt, he showed a lot.
Yeah.
Jaylen Brown has been awesome for them. I love his energy. The kid can play defense. He's super athletic, man. Some of the slams I've seen him throw down, man, he's an athletic freak, and he's shooting the basketball with more confidence this year too. So I mean, Boston, I think people thought after the Hayward injury that they were going to fall down maybe fifth or sixth in the East. Boston has the best record in the Eastern Conference right now. I mean, and to be honest with you, man, they have been probably the most impressive team in the NBA thus far this
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, like you're saying, who'd ever thought we sitting here? Matter of fact, essentially, when you think about it, the Celtics haven't lost since this podcast been created. This is our third week. They haven't lost a game since October. So I think this is very interesting with that. And I like you're saying, Jaylen Brown on Cal, even to the point I had irrational confidence to the point that I had Cal winning the national championship on the heels of Jaylen Brown's ability. So wishing, I like what he's doing, like what Kyrie's doing with Boston. Of course, I also mentioned Tatum as well, and even contributions out the bench, like a guy like a Shane Larkin, who in essence was pretty much on an NBA milk carton several years, and you're seeing him now doing his thing, and especially I think when they played against Charlotte like last week, when Kyrie got hurt and Shane Larkin came in and was doing his thing. So just that whole team, I like just like you said, the completeness of this team from top to bottom. I like this Boston team, and we talking about that they're the future. It might be the present, and I still think this team can probably still would be the best team in the East going forward. I mean, Cleveland might. I still think Cleveland, Ron James is going to still be there, but Boston's nipping at their heels, man, and they definitely definitely with the acquisition of Kyrie Irving definitely helped, and really not losing much.
Yeah.
I think people didn't really understand in the trade. They actually tremendously more so than anything. And as far as you get a guy, especially a guy like a Kyrie Irving who led that, not led him, but as far as he was one of the driving forces, one of the main reasons why the Cavs went back to the NBA Finals last season. The previous years they was there in Cleveland. So I like what this Boston team is doing.
Oh yeah, me too, man. And I think that there were a couple of moves. Like, so for instance, one of the big things, I love Avery Bradley. I think Avery Bradley's, a consummate professional. He does a lot of, things that are not going to show up on the box score. I thought that them trading was going to hurt, but Jaylen Brown has basically given you the same production that Avery Bradley has. I mean, he's not shooting the three ball as good as Avery Bradley was, but he gives you a lot more offense because he's more athletic. Then you also look at the Avery Bradley trade. They were able to get Marcus Morris, and he has actually been playing for them the last 10 games, and he's looked good for them. And another signing that I think was a low-key signing that I told people to look out for, and people laughed at me, was the Baines signing. Baines has actually made them a tougher team. You know how last year they had a lot of problems rebounding? They're a much better rebounding team due to the additions of Morris and Baines. So they have a very young, deep team. You look at the bench, you have Marcus Smart off the bench. Terry Rozier is actually he's grown up quite a bit this year too. So they have a lot of different pieces that can give them minutes if a guy goes down. And let's not forget about the engine that I think makes them go. I think Kyrie Irving's very important, but I think Al Horford is basically their Draymond Green. He's their Swiss Army knife. He does everything well. And if he was to get hurt, I think that would be more catastrophic for them if he was to get hurt and if he was to miss, some time. That would be a little more catastrophic than like maybe a Kyrie Irving getting hurt, because I think Al Horford's a very underrated player, man. He has gotten the reputation for being a bit soft, but he's playing out of position. He's really not a center. He's a power forward, but he does everything well, and he's an underrated defender as well too. So I really do like Al Horford.
And especially, and yeah, I agree with that as well. I've always said like Boston was always like a franchise player away from doing some damage, and now they got the guy in Kyrie, and then also with the other pieces aligned with him. So I definitely like the Celtics teams going forward. I mean, and like we even said, if this, we even were saying 50 team in a, it looks like it's headed that way. So, and the beauty thing with them, they're young, so that's the good thing. That's the too. They're fairly young.
Yeah, and Gordon,
without the exception of, yeah,
and Gordon Hayward's going to come back next year. When Gordon Hayward comes back, he's going to be 27, 28 years old. So they're still going to be a young team. And I think the future is very bright for Boston. The oldest player that they have on their team is Horford, who is going to be 33 next year, I believe, which still isn't that old when you think about it. But like, they're a very good young team.
And we both can attest to that. 33 is definitely not an old age. It is youth at its finest.
Yeah, at this point, it's youth at its finest, but not if you're an NBA player. Sometimes with a bunch of minutes on your back.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true. Well, hey, what you trying to say with 33? So and of course, they have a game tonight against the Mavericks. So I'm gonna go. I'm going on assumption that they're getting number 16 tonight. But like I said, it's the NBA to say. Who say in the given night,
anything can happen.
Well, say it's a sure bet. If you're a bet man, you can put a few dollars on it on the Celtics victory.
Yeah, I would probably put about I'll probably put 100 on Celtics victory tonight if I was a betting man.
Now on Saturday, what was very interesting, the Warriors and the Sixers. This was a very interesting game because this is another game which I should have learned from the night before. Don't fall asleep on a team that has a commanding lead and then be surprised the next morning that lose. So of course, I'm looking at the game and I'm like, the Sixers are doing their thing, and then I don't know if it was about like halftime or might have been right before halftime. I think I ended up watching USC and UCLA play.
Okay.
The next morning, once again, I was like, wow, the Warriors came back, but the Warriors, I'm not surprised of the comeback. State Warriors, and of course, sometimes.
Yeah, man, that game was really a tale of two halves, and I told my friend at the end of the game, Philadelphia showed why they're going to be good in the future, but they also showed their youth in the same game. So Philly was pretty much dominating the game, and like they shot 74% in the first quarter. I think at halftime they were shooting something like 64, 65%, which was ridiculous. And they were basically frustrating Golden State. Golden State was out of it. I think Golden State still kind of had a hangover because they had blew the big lead against they had blown the big lead a few nights before at Boston. And the second half, man, me and you, we talked about this a lot, Chris, man. A lot of games are won or lost in the third quarter due to adjustments, and Golden State came out, man, and they punched they punched those young boys in the face, and they didn't really know how to react to it. I mean, 47-15 in the third quarter. So I mean, think about this: they were down by 22 at halftime, and because of the 47-15 third quarter, they were up by double digits.
It was a interesting, and I thought it was because I looked at some of the of course I watched the first half, and then I ended up watching the other sports, at the highlights, and it was funny the jarring between Steph Curry and Ben Simmons.
Yeah,
Ben Simmons, he held his own. Like,
yeah,
damn, I was like, because they showed one like they were jabbing, and then they was guarding each other, and then somebody set a pick on them. He just blew up. Steph had what? Steph had 20. Did he have 27 points? Or something? I think it was something crazy because he outscored the Sixers all combined. Like I think they
I
only
think
scored
he
like
had.
what?
I think they scored 15 points.
I think he had
They
like
scored,
25 or 20. I forgot
oh yeah,
the numbers, but I know
he
he outscored the team.
yeah. Now, one thing that I'm going to say about Simmons, Simmons, I think he's having a great rookie year. You're probably looking at your rookie of the year if he continues it up, or whatever. He and Embiid, they talk too much during the game, and like sometimes you have to leave well enough alone. Like you're beating the mess out of those guys, you don't want to wake them up. And Simmons and Embiid, they were talking the whole first half, and when Golden State came back on them, they were quiet as church mice. They didn't say anything,
Yeah, and that's what Kevin Durant.
Yeah. So when you're
And that's
beating
what
the
Kevin
teams,
Durant said. Like, look,
yeah, go ahead.
all right. So it was funny because Kevin Durant was pretty much saying, look, we're not trying to lose to these dudes because they were talking so much, and of course, that was very interesting, especially like that Joel Embiid. That dude is a character, man.
Oh yeah, didn't Kevin Durant say we didn't want to lose him because we knew he was going to go on Twitter afterwards?
Pretty much. That's when he said, "Look, we ain't losing to these dudes because like all he gonna do is talk trash forever."
Yeah,
They knew what time it is. Like you said, they woke up a sleeping giant. They
yeah,
learned
and
the
that's
hard
what.
way.
Yeah, and that's the worst thing you can do sometimes when you're beating the team up or whatever. You don't want to really give them a spark because momentum is crazy, man. The only thing it takes is like you doing something crazy, and the team's right back in the game, and you might end up having to hold on for dear life. So
Yeah, it was a trip, man. Yeah, it was. Yeah, and it's just one of those things where it's gonna be good though. Feel it's gonna they're gonna be good. That's one thing I got. Like we said, it was telling two halves, and have the potential of the team, and so it was like their reality check that they're still young, they're great, but they're young and and they make mistakes, and we know.
oh yeah, man. So yeah, man, it's a learning experience. You think that maybe next year Philly will close that game out next year. They're not going to lose a game like that. They lost a couple of tough games this year where they just have not been able to close out. Last week they lost to Sacramento on the road. A game that like they let Sacramento in the game, I think, on a 10-0 run when they were up at 9 points at the game one. They lost a tough game against Houston earlier this year, and then the Golden State game this year. So they're the classic young team. They beat the teams that they're supposed to beat, but they have a hard time beating playoff teams.
Yeah. So man, yeah. So any other things you want to discuss?
So man, let's let's talk a little bit about the LaAngelo Ball thing. What
Yes.
we didn't talk about this last week. So yeah. what were your thoughts on LaAngelo Ball? Like, I know this is supposed to be like NBA, but we can talk college hoops here sometimes. What did you think about the LaAngelo Ball thing in China? What were your thoughts about that?
First of all, it's for college basketball. I look at it just from the standpoint of overseas. You are briefed by the FBI. You're briefed by, and they tell you what not to do. Just to tell you, do not go nowhere, go to a foreign country, and still. And so I'm like, what not to do, and my thing is this: doing at that age, stealing something, especially like with those kids. What was the point of that? Like, what's the point of you stealing, knowing that there's strict rules? Because they tell you, they have authorities and they brief you and tell you what not to do. And I guarantee you, they told them the certain types of enforcement that they enforce when you commit a crime. For the life of me, don't understand why on earth it's an embarrassment to college basketball, UCLA, Coach Alfred, all just for the whole scope of sports. It's embarrassing. It's gonna in the future is gonna hurt going to these foreign countries because all they're gonna look at them is already a stigma on them because of just the pigmentation of them. Have somewhat of a guy like those three kids, and people are gonna look at them and they're gonna get targeted because they're gonna look at them like, oh, they ain't nothing but thieves. They could be kids that are in college basketball uniforms and they in their gear going to foreign countries, and then people are gonna look at them like, man, are they thieves? It's already part of how that preconceived notion, but it's almost like it's added more to it.
Yeah, I kind of agree with their viewpoints too, or whatever. Like a lot of people, this I live in Korea. Like black people already don't have a good reputation when it comes to Asia. Anyway, a lot of Asian people are extremely, racist and discriminatory against black people, and it's just not a good look, man. Like when stuff like this happens, all of us look bad, and people don't that, but we black Americans, we don't really have a good reputation around the world to begin with. And then you have these student athletes who are coming there and they go there and steal or whatever. So it's not a good look for everybody. Like I don't understand why they were, why do that? And like it's a communist country. Like, had me or you done something like that, we'd be doing 10 years in jail as of today. So, like I don't understand the rationale of going to another country and stealing. Like, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. The Romans don't steal, so you shouldn't steal either. And as an American, also not even about race or anything like that. In some of these countries, when an American behaves badly, they're going to make an example out of Americans. So I just thought it was a really bad look. It looks horrible for UCLA. It looks bad for Coach Alford. It looks really bad for him. And it looks extremely bad for the legacy of college basketball in the United States. Because of this, maybe another country in Asia or maybe a European country, maybe they don't want us to come over there, within the next year or so because of something like this. They don't want to take the risk. So I mean, like the ramifications of this are huge. My next question to you is: what do you think UCLA should have done to them? Do you think that do you think that the punishment fit the crime? Should the punishment been a little more severe because they were suspended indefinitely?
I say for the entire year. I look at it and I've been back and forth. I know a lot of people, and we've discussed this on a couple other platforms. And a lot of people were saying maybe just a few games and stuff, and because it's like if you spend them for a year, you're gonna mess them up for the following year. But I'm like, to me, they the one who chose to steal. You would have did what you're supposed to do, like you said, do do when the Romans do. The Romans do. If you did that, you wouldn't have to worry about this. So to me, a consequence because you got to think about it. These guys was facing 10 years in jail. You was facing something for 10 years in jail, and then we get a slap on the wrist. We're gonna really learn our lesson when you from that standpoint. To me, you sit them out for a whole entire year. It's gonna give you enough time to reflect, and it's gonna give you enough time to and really realize that basketball is a privilege. It's not a given right just because you have the ability to play basketball that you can play basketball. There are rules and regulations to it. You cannot go to another country, even if they were still in Rodeo Drive in California, on campus or whatever, they can be still an apple at the bookstore. They still need to be spending for the season because these guys got to really realize in that predicament, y'all could have went to jail for 10 years. Y'all would have been in your 30s getting out of jail.
Oh yeah.
You gotta. It's gotta be at least a year. I say at least a season.
Oh yeah, and Chris, I see where you're coming from. I wouldn't suspend them for a year, but I would suspend them. I said that I would have suspended them for about 15 games. I would have suspended them for about 15 games. During that time, they could practice, but they would not have been allowed to wear UCLA apparel around campus. I would have stripped them of those privileges. I just think that I don't think suspending them for the whole year because the reason why is that college basketball is a business. Let's just talk about it. Like if UCLA stinks up the joint, it looks bad for Coach Alford, and it can potentially, affect their recruiting. So I say suspend the kids for 15 games. Now, I'll be honest with you. I think if those kids had been bench players, I would have just kicked them off the team. I think that you can't really punish all the kids the same way. If you're expecting for those kids to be big time contributors, maybe cut them a break. But I would have said 15 games. I think that they should have suspended for at least half the year. Let them come back maybe sometime. Let them come back maybe sometime in January, but suspend them. I would essentially suspend them for the first 2 months of the year.
Pretty much,
that's what I would.
It's pretty much like suspend them in during non-conference play.
That's pretty much, or just suspend them for conference play, and then suspend them for the first 5 games of conference play. So maybe we're looking at about 15. We're looking for about 15 to 20 games, possibly. That's what I would have done.
Yeah, and like you said, I understand the business aspect because you're right. They were suspended for the year. Alfred he'd be gone. Would struggle. So, and this is the perfect of why we really can't say these kids are student athletes. It is funny, and it is. I'm glad we both came to this. Not at the realization. We both are rationale behind the actual the suspension, because if you look at it from, we still think it's student athletes, but you're right. If you're in 15 games, because we still have to realize that this is a business. It's not what we could surmise as these kids just going to school and, like they're the consummate student athletes. This is a business, and you're right. And it's like if anywhere, it's like in the NFL, and it's fun that you bring it up, because if a guy or in sport did the same thing, we'd probably say the same thing, like maybe 5 to 10 games, because we understand the ramification of what's going on in that predicament, because we know, especially those, they are considered professional sports. Unfortunately, it has got to that point, like you, and you're right, and that's why I just think that's funny that how we both came to those decisions, because you looked at it from more the business standpoint, and I looked at it more from the quote unquote the status quo of what they should be, student athletes. But of course, like you're saying, if they were bench players, they'd be out the door. But these guys are going to be solid contributors to this team. That's why the indefinite came, it shouldn't be like the Grayson Allen type.
Oh yeah, no, I think that they deserve to sit down and actually, to be honest with you, I don't even think they should even be on the bench for these games where they're suspended. That they would not be associated with UCLA at all. Like, Carol, you can come to practice, but we're going to work you very hard in practice. Like, like, I think this should be a severe punishment. So I would make them, apps. They would actually, another thing I would actually do too. You know how like the people who wash the jerseys and stuff, they'd be washing the jerseys. They'd be washing the jerseys. They'd be mopping the floors.
And like yeah, and that's one thing too. Like if you like the ramifications, like a certain amount, but with stipulations, so they can learn, they can understand that, and that's a great way in a sense to let them know that playing basketball it's not a given to you. It be stripped of you. So you learning the ins and outs and stuff, that's definitely going to teach you like, hey, I really don't want to do this. This is my punishment. Because I still think that those guys still be somewhat a part of the universe. Like you saying, going to practice now. As far as like going to games and stuff and doing that's a little bit, a little bit too much. But I still think, like you said, I still want them to have the interaction of being around the guys. I still think you need to have that type of normalcy, because definitely considering the fact that you're in college, and of course, guys definitely can help you as far as just the whole college atmosphere itself. So yeah, I mean, yeah, just doing all the behind the scenes work and doing this, that, and the third, yeah, probably going to help them, save them in a sense, because campus, that's embarrassing as hell. Like you going and walking around campus and they looking at you like, yeah, and got running jokes, because I've already said like Leandro Ball is the league leader and assist in the nation in my steals. So I mean, of course, if I'm saying that, hell, I know the jokes are gonna be like, fire.
Yeah. Well, if he does play this year, he'll get stills in two countries. No other student athlete can say that.
Absolutely. Hey, that he might be up for a Bob Cousy award for that. Who was it say?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I just hope, like, it's one of those things where it's like, I really want to know the motive behind it. To me, I'm like, there's no reason to steal that, especially Leangelo, because this man drives a Ferrari.
Oh yeah, his family has money, so there was no need. There was no
Right.
need for him. There was no need for him to still. I just hope that this situation, it's a learning experience. I hope that they learn from this and because if they don't learn anything from this, then this might be just one of many situations that these young men found themselves in over the course of their basketball careers. If they don't learn anything from this.
Yeah, and they're very, very lucky, because I mean, you gotta think about it. And I say I'm forever. I don't care if I'm 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, or however I'm here on earth. I'm never gonna be that old man that get on my lawn type of situation. And I understand, being at that age and doing certain stuff like that to get kicks or thrills or whatever, but these guys got to realize there's consequence to your action. And that's something that some people learn the hard way. Some people don't, where they can never recover. So they got lucky, and hopefully they can learn from this mistake. Because, I know there's been kids in America that's, has been shoplifting and they've been apprehended, and some might have been killed,
Oh yeah.
It's the same, and that's one other thing. When you're that age, it's the most weirdest part of your life, because it's almost like you think you're invincible, and it's one of those things where it's just like in that there's no action to your consequence, even at that age. I mean, because we still, and I know people, people always say, well, they know from right from wrong, but we've both been 18, 19 years old, and I know everybody has done their dirt. May not have been stealing in China. I know definitely not stealing, but more, we've all have done some sort of dirt. Realize that sometimes even in the midst of doing all that dirt, there's a consequence that's far beyond the action itself. So, and they'll learn it, and like you're saying, and they'll grow from it. Hopefully, and of course, especially going, it's one thing, and with time, and it'll move forward. I mean, it's just one of those things where it's just like it sucks, that they did that. They can look back at it and be like, this was a mistake. This is something that I did when I was a teenager, and put it in their past. And hopefully that these guys go on and do something more successful at itself. Because unfortunately, these three guys, when you Google them, their kids Google them, and grandkids Google them in the next whatever, this is going to be pop up as one of the them stealing in multiple stores in China. So and hopefully they will, and time will tell.
I say most definitely will. So I guess this wraps up. Episode 3.
Yes, we saw 3 of the Eurostep podcast. Yeah, man. The AI edition. So of course we'll have next week. So the part.
So, any other thoughts of the craziness that was the association of the week? Any other thoughts?
Nothing. I'm just, of course, for me, I'm, still intimately involved with my Chicago Bulls. So I'm just, just dealing with the slow water treatment that is the process. Definitely, somewhat engaged in this so-called process, and just taking it day by day. It feel like 1999 all over again, but hey.
Yeah.
But
well, one thing I'm going to be looking at this week, I'll be looking at the Rockets a bit, because Chris Paul came back the other day, so I'm going to be looking to see how him and James Harden mesh together over the next few weeks. Harden's having an unbelievable year thus far. I would say that Harden is probably we're about 20% into the season. I would say at this point, Harden is probably your MVP so far. 20% into the season.
Yeah, because he's averaging a little over 31 a game, right? That was 31 and a half, I think.
Yeah. So Harden
league in assists.
Harden is the MVP. Harden's the MVP right now. He should have won the MVP last year, but we're not going to talk about that anymore. That was in the past. Anyway, man, it was nice doing this again. This is like my Monday night. I come home from work and we do the podcast. This is actually becoming a nice little routine. So, yeah.
And this is, of course, Monday morning here out in the East. So definitely, man. So for JB and Coach, man, this is the Eurostep podcast, man. We'll see you
next week.